Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have not done this in a couple days, so we have some teams to catch up on. We have some teams to dive into, but before we do, you better be dropping a like. You better be subscribed if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And of course, if you want to get access to our Discord, if you want to get access to my Dynasty rankings, if you want to get one of your Dynasty teams broken down on a live stream like this, you know you can find that on flogfantasy.com. Link in the live chat, link in the description, link in the comment section. When you sign up to flogfantasy.com with promo code FLOG, you're going to get all of that plus 30% off any subscription for our special launch this offseason. But again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. See you out here. Golfer Live, see you out here, Andrew. And let's go ahead and let's dive into this first team we're going to be looking at coming out from Webbs. My man, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel, saying, hey, Mason, I'm new to Dynasty this year, and this is my first league. It's a 12-team PPR league with 6 points passing touchdown and half a point tight end premium. The startup draft was in April, and we just finished the rookie draft where I traded the 110 and future second to get JSN at pick 6. Love that, my friend. If you're looking at what you would have had at 110, not that exciting. If you're looking at JSN, phenomenal. I'm lacking quarterback and wanted any advice on what I should be looking to do to trade to improve the quarterback room or any other moves we should be looking to make. As always, thanks for all the content and everything you do for the community. No, thank you so much, my man. And obviously not ideal if we're going to be lacking quarterback production, particularly in a 6-point passing TD league. Now, it's not the complete end of the world, right? But if we're pulling up this team, you'll see, yeah, we need help at quarterback here. Right now, we're currently sitting with Kenny Pickett as well as Sam Howell. But one thing that I want to point out about the quarterback position in this league in particular will be the fact that we do not have the need to have 2 elite level options. And the reason for this is if you're playing in like a super flex league where you're starting 8 total guys, where 25% of your starting lineup requirements are going to make up of the quarterback position, they are going to drive your win rate so much in that you don't have the ability to catch up with depth wide receivers. You don't have the ability to catch up elsewhere. However, in a league like this, where you're starting 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight ends, and then 3 flexes, this is going to be a start 11 league. So if we are weak at quarterback 1, weak at quarterback 2, of course, we still want to be acceptable. But if we are stronger than most people at wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and then flex 1, flex 2, flex 3, in this kind of format, you are able to catch up on those other teams that are dominating the quarterback position, where it's just not possible if you were looking at other formats. But in general, we're currently sitting with Kenny Pickett in the starting lineup. Not only do we have Kenny Pickett, but Sam Howell also not too exciting, right? I mean, if we're going to go through and look at a potential Texas squad, we don't really have any quarterbacks. We do have our 2024 first. So in general, if we decided to punt this season and play for 2024, we would put ourselves in the position where we could just go Caleb Williams 101 in the 2024 draft, and that would solve all our problems. But in reality, if you look at this team, it's a team that probably doesn't want to punt this next season. Starting at running back, we have a couple of win now options. You have Jonathan Taylor. You have Saquon Barkley. These will be guys that give you elite level production this next season. Now, of course, at the same time, we can't sit here and say that, oh, yeah, you're going to be able to start these guys forever. They're never going to lose any value. No, you could definitely see both these running backs lose value by the time we get to next offseason, even if they're great options in fantasy this year. So those are going to be 2 contending assets we're looking at. I'd say Dameon Pierce is honestly probably a contending asset, because the main thing that makes Dameon Pierce value is going to be his actual production by opportunity. You need that opportunity at the running back position, which is not guaranteed for anybody, and especially not guaranteed for Dameon Pierce, particularly in 2024. So I'd say that's a win now asset as well. Going down to the bench, Elijah Mitchell, kind of a win now asset. So we are looking at a team that will be very productive this next season, but particularly at running back, we have a lot of players where, yeah, we're ready to win today. Wide receiver, we have more of a blend. We have guys that we can build around for the long term. Also, players that are going to score 1 million points this next season. You have Jamar Chase, you have Jerry Jeudy, you have Jackson Smith-Njigba, we have Gabe Davis. Brandon Cooks really the only like win now asset that you have in this starting lineup. Going down to the bench, we have some more win now depth wide receivers, guys like Woods, Adam Thielen, but they don't really have any dynasty value, right? It's just about their production. We have some long shots with Elijah Moore and Sky Moore. But in general, this is kind of like my ideal build, particularly if we are going to be looking at a start 11 league. I want to have deep wide receivers. I want to build around the wide receiver position and then plan on starting 6 of these guys each and every week and just dominating. Now, if we're going over to tight ends, we do have the number 1 tight end in fantasy. We do have Kyle Pitts, who I love building around. But, big but here. Even if this is a tight end premium format, which it is, you're getting an extra half a point per reception at the tight end position. If you are looking at a league that has the ability to start 6 wide receivers, and on top of this, you are looking at a league where you're getting 6 points per passing touchdown, the tight end position, in my mind, is replaceable, and I would be wanting to punt. Now, I think in the vast majority of leagues, like if you're playing in a league where you only start 8 guys, you're playing a league where you only start 9 guys. Yes, we want to be building around the elite tight end. I want to grab Kyle Pitts, and I want to start Kyle Pitts for a very, very long time. This is not that format. And instead, this format, I would much prefer exploring the possibilities of what we could get through trade for Kyle Pitts. So real quick, let me go ahead and let me actually just pull up our rankings on flockfantasy.com and get a sense of maybe some of the quarterbacks that you can find alongside Kyle Pitts. Not just going to be looking at my rankings here, also going to be looking at the average expert ranking for everybody on the site. And of course, I know you can do this as well, my friend. I know you have access to flockfantasy.com, but just more so we can talk through this and maybe find a quarterback in particular that fits this roster. And it's not anything against Kyle Pitts. Like I've said a million times now, I really do like Kyle Pitts. It's more about just trying to optimize for the format that we are playing in, which I think is so damn important to do. So, okay, we're just going to be looking at quarterbacks, tight ends, in our rankings on flockfantasy.com. And if we're looking at Kyle Pitts, he has an average ranking of 29. He is currently directly behind CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, and he is directly ahead of Tua, Daniel Jones, as well as, we're not going to go down to Kenny Pickett, Jordan Love, Trey Lance. You're not trading Kyle Pitts for one of those options. But in general, if we could move Kyle Pitts and get back any one of those quarterbacks in return, if we can move Kyle Pitts and get back CJ Stroud, get back Richardson, get back Tua, get back Daniel Jones, I think that'd make a lot of sense. Tua may actually be my target with this team in particular. The reason being is this is going to be a 6-point passing touchdown format where rushing upside isn't going to be as important at the quarterback position as you would have in a 4-point passing touchdown league. So personally, that's what I'm going to be looking to do. But in reality, I think you can honestly go for any of those quarterbacks, my friend. And if we were just projecting this out, so once we bring in, say, Tua to this team, and then you move Kenny Pickett down to quarterback 2, you have Tua at quarterback 1, and we are elite at running back, we are dominant at wide receiver, dominant at the 3 flex spots. I do think that this is a team that would be ready to contend this next season. Now, of course, you could see a couple things go wrong. I mean, it's always a possibility that all of a sudden you get an injury to Jonathan Taylor, that Jamar Chase goes down, right? And then all of a sudden we realize, oh crap, Jamar Chase just went down. Jackson Smith-Njigba is not breaking out as a rookie. This is a team that we need to look to play for the long term. Then at that point, we would probably be looking to sell the veteran running backs to try to get as much value that we could for the future. And we'd be looking to try to get the 101 in 2024. But that's plan B. Plan A is we go into this next season after possibly looking to sell Kyle Pitts, get that quarterback upgrade, and then at that point, just go ahead and dominate this season with a very young core as well. Just really like having our 2024 first, where we keep this as like a safety net, right? Just in case all else goes wrong. And then also say we get to the beginning of the season and we are dominant, right? We're 4-1, we're 5-1, and you're like, man, I got a real shot to win that. I mean, the league this year. Don't be hesitant to at that point, go through and maybe trade like Sam Howell into future first and get back a massive quarterback upgrade dependent on who is rebuilding in your league at the time. I think that could be interesting as well. But those are just 2 possibilities of what we could be looking to do during the season. In reality, we're not going to want to make either one of those moves until the year actually happens. But again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. Really hope that we were able to help you out there a bit. Really hope you're able to get something from it. And as always, if there's anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'd be super happy to help you out in any way that I can, my friend. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team. This one coming out from Steel Curtain. If this is the Steel Curtain I'm thinking of, long time member of the flock. Maybe I'm wrong, but 8-team Superflex, half PPR with a tight end, full point PPR. Honestly, would love to move Barkley for some running back depth, but not sure who to target or pick value. Thanks, brother. Love the content. Also, post rookie draft this last weekend, drafted Gibbs at the 105, Levis round 2, Condre Miller in the 3rd. Okay, if we got Gibbs 105 in an 8-team Superflex league, really like that, my friend, because one thing that I do want to be talking about in general is if you're playing in an 8-team Superflex league in comparison to like a 12-teamer, obviously a 14-teamer is even further on the other end of the spectrum. But in an 8-team Superflex league, everybody will have more than enough production to go around at quarterback. In an 8-team Superflex league, these quarterbacks are inherently going to be worth less because everybody on average will have 4 starting quarterbacks on their roster. So the fact that you were able to get Jahmyr Gibbs, pick 5, really impressive in this format. But looking at this team, we currently are sitting with Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Going down to the bench, we have Baker Mayfield. We also took Levis. In reality, if we ever need to trade for a depth quarterback, going to be super easy to do in this format. And on top of this, if we are going to be looking at our top 2 options, you just have so much flexibility when we have Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, right? I mean, you are going to be getting elite level quarterback production almost regardless. Now, going over to running back, we're currently sitting with Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, J.K. Dobbins, and you'll slowly start to realize, yeah, this team's dominant. I mean, we have Tyler Algier down there as well. Now, one thing that I do want to point out, and I do want to be fair, we have to remember this is going to be an 8-team league. So you can't view like, okay, running back 1 is a top 12 running back. Running back 2 is a top 24 running back. The threshold in the bar for every player is going to slide up dramatically if you expect your team to be a true contender this next season. So if we're looking at this, if Jalen Hurts is going to be, say, a quarterback 1, he needs to be a top 8 quarterback. Lamar Jackson needs to be a top 16 quarterback to be a quarterback 2. So obviously we already have 2 quarterback 1s with this team, but running back, I'd say we probably have that as well. I mean, Saquon Barkley should be a top 8 running back this next season. You even have the possibility of getting another top 8 running back with Jahmyr Gibbs. So even with raising the bar across the board with this team being an 8-teamer compared to what you would actually have with a 12-teamer, this is still an incredibly strong roster. Now, going over to what we have at wide receiver, currently sitting with Jamar Chase, Hollywood Brown, Michael Pittman, Mike Williams in the starting lineup. So we have the elite guy with Jamar Chase, but this conversation about this being an 8-team league versus a 12-team league is going to make a little more sense at wide receiver here, right? Where you would usually be ecstatic. You'd be over the moon if you were looking if you were looking at this wide receiver room in a 12-team league. But 8-team league, when you move the bar up, it's not as impressive. Now, Chase still an elite wide receiver 1 regardless. And then if we're going to be looking at Hollywood Brown, probably not a top 16 wide receiver. Michael Pittman, probably not a top 16 wide receiver. Mike Williams, probably not a top 16 wide receiver. So you have the elite wide receiver 1, probably a couple wide receiver 3s for this format in particular. Going down to the bench, we have some more depth with guys like Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens. But in general, in this kind of league, we're going to be looking to try to sell that depth and get the best player in return that we can for a multitude of different reasons. 1, we're already going to be very strong across the board, right? 2, if we are looking at the amount of players that we're able to roster here, this is a shallower league in general. Like, let's just do some quick napkin math. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players in the starting lineup. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 total with the bench. So let me get out my little calculator here and let's figure out how many players are going to be rostered in this format in comparison to what you'd have like a 12-team league where you're starting 11 guys. So I believe we said 17 total players in an 8-team league. You have 136 guys being rostered. And if you're going to compare this to, say, like a 12-teamer where you have 30 players being rostered, 360. Let me do that math again because that just sounds crazy. Yeah. This isn't necessarily like a full-blown dynasty league, right? Because if you're, say, going through and drafting a wide receiver like Wan'Dale Robinson, for instance, you draft Wan'Dale Robinson in a dynasty league, he flashes his rookie season, and then he gets injured. nobody in a dynasty league that is large enough is ever thinking like, oh crap, do I have to drop Wan'Dale Robinson to add in the rookies this year? Whereas in a format like this, you'd actually have to be worried about that. Like if we're going to go through and look at who we probably dropped to add in our 3 rookies with this team, you probably drop Joshua Palmer. We probably drop Baker Mayfield, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But then beyond that, so our worst player on this team at this point is what? Brandon Cooks. So if we ever want to make a waiver wire move, you're going to have to look to drop a player like Brandon Cooks, you're simply never going to have to do that in like a full-blown deep dynasty format. So what I would personally look to do with this team for a multitude of different reasons, but the primary one being is because this league is so shallow, is every opportunity that we get to make a 2-for-1 deal where we're able to go through and we are able to package together, say, George Pickens and then one of these guys in the starting lineup, right? We're able to package together George Pickens and J.K. Dobbins to go get an upgrade at running back, or George Pickens and maybe even Hollywood Brown and go get an upgrade at wide receiver. That's a move that we're always looking to make because we want to be opening up roster spots at the bottom end of our team. That way we're able to go to the waiver wire. We're able to make some solid moves during the season where, I mean, if you're thinking like you probably weren't able to be the team to go through and pick up a player like Isaiah Pacheco this last year, right? Like there's no way in hell that Isaiah Pacheco would be added to this roster if you had to say, sit there and go, okay, am I really going to pick up a day 3 rookie running back and have to drop Brandon Cooks? And no, you're not going to. So I think that you probably want to be in a spot where we're just going to go ahead and make those 2-for-1 deals, open up spots at the bottom end of the roster. I really love the team. I think you obviously go into the year this year as a contender, even with this being an 8-team league and even with us raising the bar across the board. I still think you're in a phenomenal spot. But I think that's all we have for you, my friend. I really wish we were able to help you out a little bit more, but you already have an extremely strong roster, even with this being an 8-team format. But, I mean, yeah, Scorp out here saying that is a goddamn nice looking team. Best way I can put it. There's not too much we can talk about outside of going through and giving ourselves some flexibility when we get to the season by going through and making those 2-for-1 deals, right? That's the main thing that we want to be doing here. But again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. And as always, if there's anything that I can do for you, my friend, do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'd be super happy to help you out in any way that I can. But let's go over to our next team. This one coming out from Shamrocka. Thank you. Says, yo, Mason, I want to thank you for making quality content. I've been building this roster for the last few years, and I think I'm in an excellent position to possibly contend this year or next. This is a 12-team super flex. Happy to be our start 9 with the defense. I'm excited to have 2 firsts next year with one from a horrible team that could end up being the 101. Oh, hell yes. My question for you is, do you think I should be aggressive with acquiring production for my roster to win this year or continue being patient and hope to contend next season? I appreciate the work you do and looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, my man. So let's first pull up the starting lineup, get a sense of the overall settings and requirements. So you're going to be starting 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flexes, and a super flex. So just like you were saying, not a super deep league. You're starting 9 guys. So in my mind, in comparison to like the first team that we talked about here, quarterback's going to be much more important in a format like this, right? Where a quarterback is going to be 2 out of 9 of your starting lineup spots in comparison to like the first team of this live stream where it was 2 out of 11. And there, you can really just build around depth wide receiver. Can't really build around depth wide receiver here. You'd love to have 2 elite level quarterbacks, which hell, we do. We have Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. What's really nice about having both Justin Herbert as well as Trevor Lawrence as well is you have a lot of flexibility with what we want to be doing with this team. Like if we have both of these quarterbacks and we want to build to win this season, hell, we can. If you want to go through, if you want to try to win in 2023, Herbert, Lawrence, they'll get the job done. You'll have more than enough production. We have 2 quarterback once. But at the same time, if you go, you know what, man, I'm not ready for 2023. I want to build for 2024. You don't really have to do anything there either. You're going to be in a great spot to just hold on to these quarterbacks, let their value maintain, possibly continue to go up for quite some time. So yeah, you're in a really good situation to just be patient at the quarterback position here and don't really have to reach, don't really have to do anything special. Now going over to running back, we have Nick Chubb, we have James Cook, going down to the bench, I mean, we are in a spot where we have some young guys that could turn into something. Roschon Johnson, Kendre Miller. Okay, thank God we have Jahmyr Gibbs. Having Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Robinson, we have a lot of depth at running back, actually. If we were having Jahmyr Gibbs and Nick Chubb in the starting lineup, we'd be confident about projecting us to have a solid running back 1 and running back 2 pairing for a 12-team league this next season. And also, I mean, if we have James Cook, Brian Robinson, Roschon, Kendre, I mean, we have a whole lot of guys that, yeah, I mean, individually, the hit rates that we can expect with them, not great, but at the same time, if we combine them all together, we'd be pretty confident that one of them will be more than enough productive for us. So yeah, strong at running back. Wide receiver, currently sitting with Amari, Jerry Jeudy, Deontay Johnson in the starting lineup, going down to the bench. I mean, we're in a spot where wide receivers definitely are a weak point. We do have Jackson Smith-Njigba and Gabe Davis. It's really nice to have JSN for the long term, but if we're going to be realistic with ourselves here, we have a couple wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s, right? Like Deontay, Christian Kirk, probably wide receiver 3s this next season. Amari, Jerry Jeudy, probably wide receiver 2 this next season. So before we have the breakout from Jackson Smith-Njigba, it's hard to be super confident about what we're sitting here with wide receiver. And what is a little difficult as well is if we're going to be looking at what we have in terms of the composition of these players, is if we were to pivot over to 2024, right? If we were to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm not ready to win now. Let's look for the long-term build. This is not like the quarterback position that we have. Quarterback position that we have with Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, we're chilling. I mean, we don't have to look to move those guys. In reality, if we decided to pivot to 2024, Christian Kirk needs to be on the chopping block. Amari Cooper, chopping block. Deontay Johnson, see you later, my friend. You would have some work to do in terms of going through and looking to sell these wide receivers, and you're not going to get a ton in return. Like same thing, like say we were to go through and say we were going to rebuild and play for 2024, you'd probably have to go ahead and you'd probably have to sell Nick Chubb, but I'm confident in saying that we would get a decent amount in return for Chubb. Now going over to tight end, we have Darren Waller in the starting lineup. Waller should be very productive this next season, but long-term value, you don't really know what you have. You do have Pat Freiermuth down there on the bench, and you know I'm a big Pat Freiermuth guy, so I really like to see that. We have the year 2 tight end in Tennessee as well, so I do think we have more than enough depth to go around, particularly at tight end. So if we were trying to make a decision, right, where Salim says good combo of youth yet still contending. Yeah, I would agree with this. I think the only move that we can make today is probably minor adjustments to give ourselves a little more flexibility if we really want it, right? Like if we really wanted to go through and say trade Darren Waller and get back a younger and better wide receiver in return, I think that could be interesting because we have more than enough depth, particularly at the tight end position behind him, where what we could potentially look to do is we could potentially look to say, okay, well, how about let's trade Darren Waller in a package with one of these other veteran wide receivers that maybe would give us production this season, but if we look to pivot to 2024, we'd also be looking to sell. So if we could say go through and package together Darren Waller and Amari Cooper, right? And get a wide receiver that we're much more excited about for the long term. Like, let me go ahead and let me pull up our rankings on flockfantasy.com and try to give you a sense of someone that we'd be looking at. And the reason for this is I just want to give us the flexibility for when we get to the season where we are able to go through and we're able to pivot where we need to. Because I think if we were to package together Darren Waller and Amari Cooper and get an upgrade for a younger wide receiver, it's not really going to negatively impact us this next season. Like I think the points per game difference that you may have from, Darren Waller to Pat Freiermuth is going to be minimal, but it may help us a lot more in the long-term value, especially if we get that upgrade at wide receiver. Like for instance, what we could possibly look to do is take Darren Waller and Amari Cooper, and if we can go through and target like T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Drake London, Christian Watson. Obviously, you're going down the list in these rankings. I don't think you're going to be able to go through and get Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think the majority of those owners would probably reject that deal. But you really only need one to say yes. And if one does say yes there, and we're able to get a little bit younger at wide receiver while still staying productive. Notice we didn't say go trade for Quentin Johnson. We didn't say go trade for Jordan Addison, some 2024 player. But if we could package together like Amari and Darren Waller to get that option, that would be productive this season as well as in 2024. It would give us more flexibility where say everything goes wrong. Say this next year, Trevor Lawrence, high ankle sprain, Justin Herbert tears his ACL. Or maybe we don't have a few key breakouts that we were wanting. And you decide by the time we get to week 3, week 4, where we're sitting there 1-3, and you're like, I want to sell and I want to go towards 2024, right? At that point, you would be looking to have to sell Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Darren Waller, Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk, going down to the bench, probably some depth guys like Brian Robinson, James Cook maybe on the chopping block, Gabe Davis, Juju Smith-Schuster may. You'd have so many veteran assets that we are looking to sell. Maybe just getting a little ahead of that could help us out. And another thing at the same time, since we only have to start 9 guys, and we have a lot of depth here, where on the bench we have Tua, we have Roshan, we have Kondre Miller, we have Jahmyr Gibbs, we have Brian Robinson. I mean, we have Gabe Davis, we have Jackson Smith-Njigba, we have a couple startable tight ends, we have Juju Smith-Schuster. We have so much depth with this team that I think making that 2-for-1 deal is not really going to negatively impact us this year, but it could just set ourselves up in a better position for the long term. I think that could be interesting, my friend. So I would be looking at that. But again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I really hope we were able to help you out. I understand that maybe you were looking at us saying, no, man, trade all your future picks and go get, some assets to win this season, or no, trade all your players now and go for 2024. In reality, it's a lot more nuanced than that. It's very difficult to know exactly where this team's going to end up today. Of course, as we get closer to the season, as we have more accurate projections for these guys, and we know who's healthy, who's producing, who's not, and we can see the beginning of the year, that point we'll have a much, much better understanding of which direction we should take the team in. And I think we should just be preparing ourselves with the most flexibility for when we get to that point. But again, thank you so much, my friend. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'd be super happy to help you out in any way that I can. But real quick, we actually have a couple donation questions coming out. Winning says, did I make a good deal? Can you rate my trade? Says, I joined a 12-team PBR 2-quarterback dynasty league. I had the 102 in the veteran draft, took Josh Allen. Then I traded away my future first and second round to take Lamar. Traded Lamar and my 212 rookie pick for this year in the 101 for Bijan. I don't know what else you included in the deal. If the only thing you traded away was your 2024 first and second to get Lamar Jackson, then yes, you made a phenomenal deal. But at the same time, I doubt you were able to trade for Lamar Jackson straight up with just the 2024 first and second. If you were like including other startup picks in there, then it's much, much more difficult for me to say, my friend. But Cameron coming out with the donation, thank you, says, random 12-team Superflex startup is trading 111, 911 for the 208 and 505 good value. Didn't like anyone on the board at 11. If you really didn't like anybody on the board at 11 and you're going to be fine with someone at the 208, then sure, it's fine. The thing is, if you were looking at 11 in comparison to what you would have in the late second, you may be in a position where you passed up on the ability to actually grab a cornerstone quarterback that you may not have at the 208, but really it is just going to be up to your personal preference there, my friend. Okay, let's see if we have anything else. I think we should just go ahead and possibly dive into our next team thoughts. This next one coming out from Jay Brooks. I'm sorry. We were going to do this on a personalized podcast because it's a weird little format. So you know what? I'm probably going to cut the live stream here. I will get to these other teams with personalized podcasts and get that sent out to y'all on Discord. But again, thank you so much, everybody, for being a member of the flock, supporting the channel. As always, if you want to join the flock, if you want to get your team broken down on a live stream like this or in a personalized podcast, if you want to get access to my Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, if you want to get access to all your favorite fantasy football content creators, find all of that on flockfantasy.com. Sign up with promo code FLOCK in the Mother Flocker package to get your team here. And on top of that, and get 30% off any subscription. But again, thank you. We have one more question coming out from Kyle. Says, Waddle, Jameson, 2024 first for Jefferson, Dameon Pierce, and a PBR Superflex. Which side do you like? So I would rather have, I'd say Dameon Pierce, Jameson Williams, very similar. I'd probably slightly rather have Dameon Pierce. If I'm looking at Waddle versus 2 future first versus Justin Jefferson, really does depend if I'm going to be a contender or a rebuilder. If I'm a contender, I'd rather have the Justin Jefferson side. If I'm a rebuilder, Waddle, Jameson is slightly intriguing, dependent on what you perceive the value of Jameson Williams to be. But again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate y'all. Really hope you have a great day, and really hope that we get to see you with the Underdog live stream we'll have in 30 minutes on Flock Fantasies YouTube channel.